In this tutorial, we'll learn about product attributes. So product attributes allow you to specify options, add-ons, and features to your products. Examples of product attributes within the web to print market include things like if you're including laminations, if you want to change the product color, if you want to include bubble wrap packaging, paper stock, or you can even go as far as allowing users to upload their own artwork or media files, for example. These can be specified to add a cost to the product or to flag up a feature to the printer once an order is placed. In this particular example we'll go through today, we're going to define a color and a size attribute on a clothing product which is on our storefront. And this is an example of a completed version of what we're going to do today. So we've got a clothing product available, and you'll see we've got some attributes available here. One's controlling the size, one's controlling the color, and there's some additional settings available in here as well. So for example, if I choose a particular color, it might have a price markup. If I choose another color, it might have different size options available. The price might change, and you'll see, for example, if I select certain configurations of those attributes, it will also change the image associated with the product. So we'll cover all this functionality in this tutorial, and that should give you a good overview of the attributes functionality. So what we've done to begin with, and this is our storefront we're going to be working on, is we've created a very basic stock product. So this is our starting point, and all that's been defined in this product is a product name, and we've applied an image to it as well. Nothing else has been done at this stage. Within the Infigo admin area, we're going to start by creating an attribute group. So an attribute group is a selection option which sits on a storefront level. So like the size option or the color option that we just saw, and can be applied to one product or to multiple products, or it can be applied to a product group as well. An example of an attribute would be clothing size, as we mentioned, where the specification could be applied to numerous items of clothing. So we're going to start off by going to Catalog, Attributes, and Product Attributes. And what you see here is a list of all of the attributes that we currently have assigned on this particular storefront. So from other products, I've created two product attributes, which are language and product color. I'm going to create a new one here, which is detailing the clothing size. So if we go on Add New, that brings up the Add New Product Attribute page, and we can put in a few basic details in here, which are basically descriptive details. So what we're going to do is put in a name, so I'll put it clothing size. So then we have a friendly name, which is just a sort of more user-friendly version of the full name we've got here, as this might not be quite as straightforward as we've got written. So I'll just put size for that one. Now we can add a description, we can add some help text as well, which is basically the equivalent of this little pop-up here. And then once I've finished, I can click on Save. Now once we're at this stage, we've created the attribute group. We now have a choice of whether we want to predefine some values for this attribute. Values being things like small, medium, and large for our clothing size. So predefining attribute values can save you time if you plan to apply those attributes to numerous products. And it's also possible to define any attribute values on a product by product basis. So for example, if you don't want to predefine all of your attribute values, or it's going to change product by product, you can do it on a product basis rather than by predefining attribute values such as clothing size. For this one, we will predefine some values, just as an example. I'm going to start off by going to Catalog, Attributes, and then Product Attribute Values. You'll see that all the attribute groups that we've created are listed on this page. And then we can get to some additional details and assign some predefined values by clicking on the plus icon next to our relevant attribute. Then we can see a table which will contain our predefined values. So I'm going to go to Add, and then we have some details in here. So again, I've got name and friendly name. So I'll just put small, my friendly name might be S, as that might be what appears on our storefront. Now we do have some other critical options in here as well. If I scroll down a little bit. So specific attributes may change the weight or the cost of a product, and that needs to be taken into account upon the selection of that attribute. So within this screen we can define any price adjustments. So you'll see in this section here we have a price adjustment, and we can do that by an absolute value or as a percentage of the cost of the product. We also have a weight adjustment and dimensional adjustments. Something to note when you're filling in these particular fields here, the adjustment values are adding or subtracting from the core product value. So for example, if you've got a product that's priced at £10, then adding a price adjustment of 2 will result in a £12 product. Okay, and then once you've filled out the relevant information, click on Save. I'm going to create 2 more attributes here, 2 more attribute predefined values for medium and large. So there we go, you can see those 3 have been specified. So we're now whenever we use this attribute on an item of clothing or any of our products, we will already have these values predefined. So next we're going to specify our clothing size attribute is to be used on our clothing product. So we'll start by navigating to the product variant settings of that particular product. So if I go to our catalog, product management screen, and locate that particular product, we can get easy access to the product variant settings by clicking on this plus icon next to the product. This table here is the product variant, and then I can go to edit over on the right hand side, sticking within the product variant table to get to the product variant settings. Now the product variant tabs contain quite a lot of pieces of information, most of which are covered in other tutorial videos. In this particular tutorial we're going to be sticking mainly to the attributes tab. So you'll see at the moment we don't have any attributes assigned to this particular product. So I'm going to go to Add New Record. I then get a list of all the attributes that are available and specified on our storefront. So I can select one of those. Product landing label, that's what the customer will actually see as a descriptor for that particular attribute. So if I go to our completed version just to show you, it's sort of this select color or select size that I've written. We can specify whether or not this is a mandatory selection, and we can choose the control type. So drop down list or radio button list, but then we can also go as far as a true or false checkbox. If you want to allow text input, we've got a single line text box and a multi-line text box. Date picker, file upload capability, so if there's some additional artwork that you need to obtain from the customer, for example. What you select here would depend on what you're trying to show and in what format you are trying to show it. We will stick with a radio button list for this one, and then I'll click insert. And what you can see is that there's a new section appeared here underneath values, and there's 3 values appeared automatically, and these are the values that we've predefined for this attribute. However, we can make additional changes to this. So if we don't want one of the predefined attributes on this product, or if we want to add some additional, we can do that by clicking on the view/edit value icon. You'll see we've got our small, medium and large options, and if we want to remove those, we can do, or we can add an additional one. And if we add an additional value here, it will just be on this product, it will not be on the whole attribute specification. So I'm going to just create another one for extra large. Okay, I'm now going to go back to our product variant settings and save those changes that we've made. And let's take a look at that on our storefront. So if I just refresh our product, we'll now see that our size selection is available. There is radio buttons, and the text that's being displayed is that of the friendly name that we specified. Okay, so we're now going to define a second attribute group, and this will allow customers to select the color of our clothing product. And we'll set this up in a slightly different way. So we start off in the same way. So if we go to catalog, attributes, and product attributes, I'm again going to add a new product attribute. This one's going to be clothing color. And then save that. Now on this one, we're not going to predefine any values. So we're going to jump straight back to our product. So into the product management screen and edit the product variant settings for the product of interest. Over to the attributes tab, add a new record, and then fill in these options. So clothing color, product landing label, so information for our storefront users, whether it's required, select an appropriate control type, and insert. And what you can see is that when we've inserted this one, there's no value set by default, so we need to go into the value screen and apply some. Okay, so let's go and add some new values. I'll start off with a red option. And remember that you can apply relevant price adjustment or weight adjustment values for each attribute value on this screen. So in our example, we'll create 3 attribute values. So we'll make red, black, and white. But we'll say, just for the purpose of this example, that there is a price adjustment for the red selection. So if I'm creating my red attribute value, scrolling down on that same screen, we get access to the price adjustment and weight adjustment options. And I'll just put a £2 markup on that particular selection. and then save. And you can see it's registering that price adjustment. I'm going to add two other values for white and for black. Okay, and now we'll go back to the product variant settings. Save those changes, and let's have another look on the storefront. So there you go, you can see our colour has now been applied as a drop down option, and there's a markup applied when red is selected. So what we're going to do next is apply some attribute logic. So attribute logic allows administrators to define which values of attribute B are available when a value of attribute A is selected. So basically, in our example here, if we have a certain color selected, for example, then let's say only certain sizes are currently in stock and available for selection. So attribute logic can only be applied to attributes with different display order values, as well as controlling the order in which things display on the storefront. This also gives a kind of priority to a certain attribute, so it means you can relate one of them to the other. So I'm going to start off by modifying our clothing size display order. So if I just change the display order to 1 and update, that gives that one a lower priority. And next I'm going to click on the Add Logic button next to Clothing Color. And what you can see if you click Add Logic is there's a new section of options that appear at the bottom of the screen, which allow you to populate a sentence essentially to give you really fine control over what's available for certain attribute selections. So in this case, let's say for example that if somebody selects a red clothing product, then we're out of stock for the extra large size. What that means is we fill in if clothing color, so our clothing color attribute, is equal to red, then show clothing size, so a second attribute, and then we just select the items that are available and then hit save. Now when we start specifying logic, we need to complete the process essentially. So what this means if we view it here is, so let me just save that and view it on the storefront. It means that only this consideration is available. So if I select white or black as a clothing color, then it's not going to show me any sizing options. That's not the case if you don't have any logic available. So if you don't have any logic defined, everything will be visible. But if you start defining logic, you need to make sure that everything has available logic. So just to demonstrate what I mean here, we've got this sentence available. So I'll refresh that. So we've got red and we've got small, medium and large available. So extra large is no longer available. But if I go to black or white, we'll see that the size options disappear completely. So we need to add two additional logic statements to control the black and white color selections. So I want all sizes to be available for black and the same for white. So now we should see, if we refresh that on the storefront again, small, medium and large available for red and all sizes available for black and for white. Next we're going to apply some attribute combinations. So attribute combinations are useful when you're manage inventory method is set to track inventory by product attributes. So basically, if you've got, let's use our clothing for an example, if you've got small, medium and large in different colors, each one of those items will probably need a separate inventory level. So if you're approaching your storefront in that way, attribute combinations can be very useful. The attribute combination will be used when the attribute selection in the product page match some of the attributes specified in the list of attribute combinations. Each attribute combination will have a priority level that will be used in case more than one combination matches the same number of attributes and values for the current attribute selection. So it basically allows you to prioritize which combination should be taken into account. So let's simplify it down. In this particular example, we're going to apply some attribute combinations defining stock levels, SKU code, and we'll also change the product image based on the combination of selected attributes. So we start off on our product variant settings. So far we've been working on the attributes tab. We're now going to go across to the attribute combinations. We'll add a combination, and what we get to begin with is a fairly basic set of options. So we get our combinations of attributes which we need to select, then we can define a stock quantity, we can define a SKU code, and we can define a priority. So I'll say, for example, we'll work with the small size just to keep it nice and simple. And I'll start off with the red color selection. I can define a stock level, a SKU code, so an identifier for that particular product, and then add combination. Now we also want to define an image to this. When we were initially defining the combination, we didn't have access to the image properties, but if we go back to edit this now, so now it's actually been saved onto our configuration, we have an additional tab available which is allowing us to upload an image for that particular combination. Now this is a very simple interface. Just upload a file, select the image to upload, and then add a product picture. And what it means is that when that particular configuration of attributes is selected, this picture will be shown. So back to the General tab and Update. So I'm going to do the same process for the different colors of product, but we'll leave the size as small just for simplicity. So we'll go with black. And white. Now in reality, you're going to want to create a attribute combination entry for every single variation of your attribute selections. Now that could be just a few entries, but it could end up being quite a large amount of entries. If that is the case, you do have this ability down at the bottom to export and import as CSV. So this will give you a format of Excel sheet or a CSV sheet which you can populate with the entries that you require and then just directly import back into Infigo, and it will populate this table for you instead of having to do all of those manually. So where were we? Now I need to apply an image to those two. So same process as with the red one. Then we'll save those changes and we'll take a look on our storefront. So now if I have any of the colors selected and then select one of my sizes, the image should update related to that.